long and prosperous.
I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Shut up and take my money.
I grab Thar's hammer. What a saving.
One does not simply walk into Mordor.
X never, ever marks the spot.
Winter is coming. You're a wizard, Harry.
Stay a while and listen.
Hey, old Kermit Frog here.
Your ties are cool.
So say we all.
This is a Play on Nerds. Welcome to episode 196, I think, of a Play on Nerds. I'm Jarman, one of your hosts.
And I'm Steve, the other guy. And boy, are we going to co-host the hell out of this thing.
Oh, yeah. And in honor of the new-to-be-released movie, If, All About Imaginary Friends, we're going to review the seminal Imaginary Friend movie from 1991. You've all seen it. You all love it. Drop Dead Fred.
That's right. Phoebe Cates at her finest and acting herself a damn fool.
And so is Fred. I always forget the actor's name.
Before we get to that, Jarman, what have you been up to since last time we talked?
Oh, man. So last time we talked, from then I've been moving, which somehow we moved from a 1,300 square foot house to a now 2,500 square foot house, doubling the size of where we were living. And we still had I had 3 almost truckloads of one of those moving truckloads of crap in that small house that is now fitting in this house appropriately. I'm like, how did we have so much junk that we've just collected?
Your house was admittedly a bit cramped.
It was very cramped. So now we have space to move. The funniest part is now I'm in this, it's the second floor of this house, which I had to talk to a couple engineers that I'm luckily friends with in my D&D group, who work for Lockheed Martin and stuff like that, to say, can I put a 600-pound booth on the second story of a 1920s house? And also myself, my fat butt inside the booth. And they're
plus equipment and other things.
Yeah, and equipment. They're so they had to actually do some math, and they said it actually works out okay because it's similar to the weight of what you'd have in a tub, a full like
a loaded bathtub.
Yeah, loaded bathtub with a large person in it. That's pretty much around the same thing. People have fish tanks, pianos. The house should be able to take it unless something was structurally wrong with the house. So I'm not falling through the ground yet. So I'm talking to you guys right now.
Here's hoping that there's nothing structurally wrong with the house.
Exactly. And then I've been having to work like crazy on top of that because I was still catching up from being on the honeymoon. And also, speaking of honeymoon, Jolie and I, we went on the Cosmic Pizza podcast, and we talked all about the honeymoon with the boys from the UK and Sean from Canada. It was a lot of fun. We talked about our trip, so go check out the Cosmic Pizza podcast. We'll talk all about that trip in long detail because they want to know what we thought of the UK as Americans, so it's kind of fun.
And speaking of Sean, big shout out to Sean, who just got married.
Heck yes,
in Vegas this last week. Congratulations, Sean and Leah. Many happy returns.
Oh, and I have a great picture to show them because I was actually at my first D&D session in probably 2 or 3 months. But it was on that day, May the 4th. So I actually have my laptop with the live stream of Sean getting married. As he's getting married, I took a picture at the table with the D&D stuff around the laptop while he was getting married. So that was kind of fun. So thanks, Sean. I hope it went well.
Double nerdery.
That's right. Steve, what have you been up to?
Really just been working a lot. We did get to go to Kennywood. We've got season passes now.
What's Kennywood?
Kennywood is one of the few family-run amusement parks left in the United States.
Oh.
They've been around forever. It is a staple for Pittsburgh. They've got a lot of thrill rides in the good kids area. But Kennywood in Pittsburgh is it's a big deal out here.
It's like Wally World.
Yeah, kind of. And for Christmas, my folks got us season passes.
Nice.
So we've been trying to go, for a couple hours on a Sunday. Nothing crazy. We don't need to stay. We got the passes.
How far away is it from your house?
Traffic, good. 20 minutes.
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad at all.
Very nice.
So yeah, we got to go to Kennywood, but otherwise I've just been working. We're hiring, so I have to make a lot of phone calls,
You're an HR guy now. That's the way it works.
I screened something like 80 some people.
Whew. Well, hire someone
all
good.
Those are screens. Sometimes people just don't answer. They don't call you back. You leave multiple messages.
Well, that's good for getting a job.
80 phone calls at least.
Mm. Yeah, my wife is going through a application process right now, just applying for jobs and stuff, and it's rough out there. People don't answer the phone; they don't ever give her calls back. So, thank you for calling people back. That's nice.
Apply for a job out in Pittsburgh. You just come move here.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Just to own a house up the hill from me for $130,000.
Wait, what are hills? I'm confused.
Yep, you'll get it.
So yeah, I think that takes some nerdy news. Or you still have more to talk about?
I'm waiting for the sound effect, bitch.
Sound effect. It's weird, folks, because it's the first time that Steve and I have a video on with each other, looking at each other's faces while we're doing this recording. We never have video, so I'm almost thrown off by it. But here we go.
Also, I'm normally wearing a GIMP mask.
Yeah, you took it off the recording. I appreciate that.
So
It's time for Nerdy News.
all right, this week, the cheeky title for my cheeky story is Milk. It does a body good.
Mm-hmm.
Researchers at the University of Illinois and a bunch of other universities, there were like 6 of them, have genetically modified cows to produce some interesting milk. No, it's not chocolate milk. They haven't figured that out yet. It's insulin. So it turns out udders, and specifically mammary glands, are really great at making protein. And something I learned is that insulin, before it becomes its active form, is a protein that the body makes. So they took 10 calf embryos. They targeted it with some additional DNA. And after they growed and they expressed them, or milked them, they said expressed. I was like, so you milked cows. Got it. You don't need to make it sound fancy. The scientists not only found pro-insulin, which is the protein version, before insulin becomes active, which is what they expected, but they also found almost equal parts of active insulin, which was like a side effect they weren't expecting. But they say that with per liter, they were able to pull 1 gram of insulin per liter. But there's these things called Holstein cows that produce between 40 and 50 liters of milk a day.
Jesus.
So each cow could potentially produce nearly 1.5 million units of insulin daily. A single dairy cow.
And so instead of synthesizing it like fake way in a lab, they can just get it naturally through cows. Oh,
right.
Good thing they just capped the price of insulin in the U.S. so they can't bank on this.
But I mean, this is one of those game changer things, all because of geneticists and a little bit of DNA meddling.
You know, usually we give bug news, but now we're giving some happy science news.
That's right. So remember to drink your milk because it does a body good.
But that brings us to our main segment, Drop Dead Fred.
Oh boy. So I remember watching this film growing up. Did you watch it growing up?
Oh yeah. We must have watched it together because around that time we would have seen it.
I feel like it was on TBS at some point, but all the best parts were edited out.
Yeah. All the curse words I forgot were in this movie.
Well, Phoebe Cates plays Elizabeth, a woman sort of forced to move back in with her domineering mother after her husband leaves her. Her wallet and her car get stolen all on the same day. She's really in the dumps. She finds a Jack-in-the-Box in her old room and begins to play on its own because trapped inside is her old imaginary friend, Drop Dead Fred. She unleashes Fred back into her life. He wrecks the house, causes mischief, spreads dog poo on her mom's perfectly clean living room. Elizabeth wakes up hoping it was all just a nightmare, but it wasn't. Fred won't leave. It turns out that invisible friends show up when kids are unhappy, and now because she's miserable, he can't go. Elizabeth has a series of flashbacks to their time together. They play burglars in the house and they steal a bunch of stuff, but the parents think they're actually being robbed. So the father calls the cops and then accidentally assaults a cop. The next day, Elizabeth goes with her mother for a makeover. She comes home to a note from her husband who wants her back and misses her, only to find out that really it's a note from Fred, who's being a dick. Elizabeth then goes to visit her best friend, played by Carrie Fisher.
Woo, Carrie Fisher.
See if she can see Fred. She has another flashback tied to a time where Fred cut her hair. And then she wakes up to find her hair freshly cut despite her makeover. So what does she do? The only sensible thing, she steals her friend's houseboat and goes on a chase that leads to her sinking it. Her friend has like a breakdown at the office, finding out that her house has been sunk. Elizabeth tries to go on a date with this childhood sweetheart kind of guy, but Fred ruins it. And she then presumably beats a violin player and breaks her instrument. Elizabeth's mom takes her to a psychiatrist where they meet a bevy of other, where I guess she doesn't. We all meet a bevy of other imaginary friends because the imaginary friends can all see each other, but each kid can only see their imaginary friend.
I like those rules. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good rules. And so the kids can see them all interacting and saying hi, but they can't see each other. And the other imaginary friends warned him that if she starts taking the green pills, Fred is going to die. Elizabeth flashes back again. Her mom and dad are really at ends. Their marriage is sort of falling apart. She ends up making a mud pie. She makes a huge mess. Fred hides inside her jack in a box, and that is when her mother gets it and threatens to crush and kill him if Elizabeth doesn't get her shit together. And that's the day that Elizabeth starts behaving and like doing everything her mom says. Elizabeth is now under nursing care. She escapes her nurse, and the sweetheart happens to be there and gives her a ride and then drops her off. I'm like, oh, you're a convenient plot device. She makes her way to her husband Charles's party. Fred is dressed up all fancy, and it's there that she meets Charles's new girlfriend, Annabella.
Bridget Fonda.
Charles makes the moves on Elizabeth, but Fred realizes that he's bad news. Elizabeth keeps taking her pills. Fred grows weaker and weaker, and Fred tells her that Charles is still talking to Annabella. Elizabeth catches him and then like collapses to the ground where she finds herself in a psychedelic dream state. And in her dream, it's like haunting and everything's overblown, but it's the house she grew up in. And she can't get up the stairs. So she grows a tree inside of her house, confronts her dream mother, and finds her younger self tied and bound to a bed. There's a lot to unpack here. Yeah. Like I'm having trouble recalling everything.
Very Freudian.
Frees her younger self, but then when she goes, she realizes that Fred can't come with her because his job's complete. She's happy now. She doesn't need him anymore. They kiss. It's weird. It's a weird choice they made for this movie. They have a kiss, an oddly romantic kiss, and a hug, and Fred disappears. Elizabeth wakes up. She dumps Charles. She steals his car. She heads to her mom's place. She grabs Fred's Jack in the Box, and she confronts her mom, who ultimately blames her for her father leaving. But Elizabeth hugs her and tells her maybe she needs a friend. Elizabeth meets up with Old Flame. It turns out that he has a troublesome daughter of his own who has a new imaginary friend named Drop Dead Fred, as Fred continues his mischief with a new generation.
Mm-hmm.
So was this movie everything you remembered it being?
It kind of was. Like, I wasn't disappointed. I remember thinking it was zany and crazy when I was a kid, and watching it again as an adult, it's definitely more of an adult movie, not a kid's movie. That's not that part I didn't remember. So you're right. It probably was like on TBS or something where we didn't see all the kind of more risque parts or something. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun to watch. I don't know. Did it have the same magic for you?
Sort of. I think the things now I see it has some major issues, but the things that it has didn't bother me as a kid. And the sort of the two things I really struggle with are the pacing because of the amount of flashbacks and that jumpiness to her past. I know it's supposed to connect to a specific moment in the movie and be like a parallel thing, but it was sometimes just like a little too on the nose, and it just made the plot kind of like
jump back and forth
because we just kept doing it. And they weren't short flashbacks either. They were like 2 to 5 minute flashback scenes.
Yeah.
So it really chopped up the movie a bit. And then just some weird choice, like the kiss was weird.
This should have been a kiss
What
on the cheek.
What a weird moment. Yeah, it should have been a kiss on the cheek,
That would have been fine.
Instead, not only was it a kiss, but it wasn't a peck. It was like, it was kind of romantic.
Yeah, it was, and it came out of nowhere because they're not romantic at all throughout the whole movie.
And there's no other moment where it comes up.
And it would have been so sweet, just a little kiss in the cheek. Like, I'm an adult now, so I'll kiss you in the cheek, and like we're more mature about this, but not a kiss in the mouth, like a romantic kiss. Yeah, that was odd.
Well, once again, I think a peck would have been fine. Something quick.
Yeah,
But
that
it
too.
was like, it was romantic. Like it just was past that border. It just was. And the other thing is that they blur the line a couple times in like, what is Fred actually real, or is Fred only in her mind? But kind of in like not good ways. There are times where it feels like he's really interacting with the world and making things happen. The best example is when they make the mud pie.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes out and brings in this huge brick of mud. Huge. And you say to yourself, there's no way that 6-year-old little girl could get that inside on that table.
The biggest glaring one for me was the note from her husband.
Yeah. The
Because
note
her
that
mom touched the note.
saw. Yeah.
And like she literally, unless she did it in her sleep, sleepwalking, wrote the note and put it there. Like,
Yeah.
I guess, but like it's still, that's
So-
like,
That was tough for me. And then, you have those moments, but then you have moments where like he has to work through her to make something happen. And those sort of mischievous moments. So it felt mixed. But I didn't care about those things as a kid.
I think when you bring that up, it makes me think of the one thing on my dislike list was that especially Carrie Fisher's character, not Carrie Fisher's fault, just the way it was written, doesn't react to Lizzie's craziness in an adult movie form. Like the fact that she just sunk her house, she's not at all mad at Phoebe Cates' character, Lizzie. She's just like mad that it happened. And it's like, I would be like furious. You just sunk my entire life. And like,
right.
Where she reacted in a kid's movie way, like by beating up, the fake invisible friend.
Mind you, that was one of the better scenes.
It was funny, but I mean,
she's like doing this in the office and grabbing him, punching
beating up
that
nothingness. Yeah. So like that wouldn't have stuck out to me as a kid, but as an adult, I'm like, she's not reacting in a way an adult would actually react in the situation. So that felt out of place, but because I didn't have other moments in the movie that felt that out of place as that one did. I don't know.
I can get that.
Yeah.
But some things that I liked, the whole movie had better music than it deserved.
Great music,
and I looked it up, and the guy who did it was called Randy Edelman, who did Twins, Troop Beverly Hills, Kindergarten Cop, My Cousin Vinny, Beethoven, Last of the Mohicans.
Whoa.
The Mask, Billy Madison, The Indian in the Cupboard, The Big Green Dragon Heart, Anaconda. He's got like a mile-long music list. So it had better music than it deserved. And the guy who played Fred, Rick Mail, was genuinely entertaining.
Yeah.
And had no bounds and could go for it. And this is, I dare to say it, after having seen like Muppet Show guests like Spike Milligan and some of those guests that are too British to find funny. I feel like this is the first avenue where I've found that kind of over the top British humor works. Because he's an imaginary friend where everything is supposed to be insane and everything's supposed to be over the top.
And I looked him up online to find out more about him because we know so little about him here in the US, but apparently he was very big in the UK.
Oh, yeah.
Especially at the time. Like he was a big star at the time because he was in this show where he played like a punk in the late 70s that was really edgy and for its time. And he's kind of like a Jim Carrey type over there, but he was also like more edgy than Jim Carrey, kind of like at the time. And so it's really a shame we didn't get more from here in the US because he was so funny and also the tender moments he had were good too. Like he pulled those off well. Like the contrast, it wasn't just.
And the you're absolutely right. The acting was better, I think, than the role deserved also. He could have just been over the top, but there were those moments where like he was trying to hide that he cared.
Yeah.
Where he was doing something that seemed mischievous, but really it was because he wanted her to be okay. Especially the scenes when she's a little girl.
Yeah.
Where like he is the one mentally saving her from her parents' impending divorce.
That's what made this whole movie more than just a silly, ridiculous, gross out comedy. Because there's a lot of those tender moments that were just like, that's really sweet. And I get the message they're giving here. It's not just a vacuous thing. I like that a lot.
So yeah, I think Drop Dead Fred holds up pretty well. It scratches that sweet nostalgia itch. And if you haven't seen it, I'd say you should see it, internet.
Yeah, and the rest of the performances are really good too. Phoebe Cates was really good. I'm sorry we didn't get more of her later into
Carrie Fisher, the woman who plays her mom,
she was great.
Was great in that really rough, domineering way.
The husband, the slimy husband,
Charles.
What's his actor? You've seen him in tons of things.
He's been in tons of stuff. He was in Black Sheep with Chris Farley.
Yeah, so that's right. He started off in Animal House. That's what it was.
There we go. Yep.
But he's really good. And then, Carrie Fisher's always amazing. I love the costumes that Fred always had and all the imaginary friends and everything.
And the different settings. I like that when they went to the swanky party, he had that almost Dumb and Dumber-esque. Or he looked almost like the Riddler, like a version of the Riddler, a Batman film, basically.
And for other bad things, though, I think the CGI, unfortunately, was very dated, but they tried. But the practical effects they did have were really good, like his flat face in that one scene where he gets smushed and things like that. But him bouncing around kind of looked bad sometimes. But then I see
her sneezing and him being thrown. Yeah.
And they did, some people, apparently one studio rejected the script initially because it was too similar to Beetlejuice that just came out. And I could see a lot of similarities to Beetlejuice. Yeah. He's like this mischievous character that does kind of care eventually about, Winona Ryder's character. And that whole like Dreamhouse sequence was very Beetlejuicy. But other than that, I think this is actually another one of our movies we've watched that wasn't terrible. It wasn't a Nutcracker. It was actually really pretty good and entertaining.
Yeah, man. Once again, like Nutcracker is a 3 sitting. Like so far, that's the only 3 sitting I've had.
This is only a 2 sitting for me because I had to go to bed halfway through the first watch and then I had to finish.
And that's fair.
But it was great. Fair. It was really fun. We do have some good trivia for this film.
Ooh.
The scene where Polly, I guess that's her mom's name, where she tapes up the Jack-in-the-Box containing Fred was based on an actual incident that happened to a friend of the co-writer, executive producer. And his mother, Gloria, had an imaginary friend when she was a little girl, but the girl's mother couldn't stand the fact that her daughter had an imaginary friend. And it finally got to the point where her mother took her imaginary friend and flushed it down the toilet. And this incident traumatized her for 3 years, apparently, so that he knew this story from his mom, so he put it in the movie. Apparently, Robin Williams was offered the role of Drop Dead Fred, but instead chose to play Peter Banning in Hook in that same year. They wanted Rick Mayall from the beginning, but the American producers who were funding it wanted Robin Williams instead because he was American and well known. But they went with Rick Mayall after Robin Williams did Hook instead. But Hook is fantastic, so I'm glad he did that. And also, both of them died in the same summer of 2014. Robin Williams and Mayall both died the same year, unfortunately.
Aww.
The script was originally offered to Tim Burton, but he declined to direct, which I'm glad because he just did Beetlejuice. It'd be kind of too similar. Grandma Bunce was Lizzie's grandma, only in one scene, but she was played by the director's mother, and she gets paint thrown on her in the scene, and actually yogurt was used. And apparently weeks later, she said she still found some yogurt in her ears, which is really gross.
It feels like you don't clean them well.
Yeah, you should clean your ears better. When viewing a rough cut of the film, one New Line executive asked Rick Mayall's if Rick Mayall's character could be redubbed as to speak with less of a strong English accent and more of a transatlantic one so that U.S. audiences wouldn't find it so jarring. When one of the working title was named the production company, producers asked Mayall to pass on the suggestion. Mayall replied, "You must be joking. I'm Rick, 12 inches of throbbing manhood Mayall, and I'm English. If he wants a transatlantic voice, then give him a shovel and tell him to dig up Cary Bloody Grant." So I love that response. So he didn't do it. They kept all the Britishisms in, just as it was. So Winona Ryder was also the director's first choice for the role of Elizabeth instead of Phoebe Cates, but she just, because he saw her in Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands and Heathers. But one of the executives felt that she was too young for the part. But the role was offered to her anyway, but she turned it down as she was busy doing another movie called Mermaids, and because she didn't want to be typecast in strange comedies, but she kind of was.
Yeah, it's true.
But then also offered the role was Molly Ringwald, Julia Roberts, Martha Plimpton, who you'd recognize if you saw her picture, Jennifer Connelly, Leah Thompson, and Uma Thurman. All those huge names later on in life were all offered this role. Shortly after the film's release, the writers and the producers were working with Polygram, Working Title Films, and New Line Cinema on a sequel, with Rick Mayall reprising the role of Drop Dead Fred. But Mayall declined to return in the role, so the sequel was reworked with the then unknown Jim Carrey. It was right before he blew up big. So he was going to be in the sequel as Drop Dead Fred. But this version was scrapped both due to Polygram experiencing financial difficulties. They eventually went out of business. And Carrey had just signed on to do Ace Ventura Pet Detective instead. So that was a good decision for him.
Leading to the three still biggest years of his career.
Oh, yeah.
Where he did Ace Ventura, The Mask,
Dumb and Dumber,
and Dumb and Dumber, like 3 successive years.
And New Line Cinema, who's also involved with this movie, they're the ones who produced The Mask and Dumb and Dumber, so they knew what they were doing.
There we go.
And in the early 2000s, Mayall worked with both the same writers again to make a proper sequel of the film, even in the year 2000, so many years later. And then they were eventually, though the sequel was also not to materialize, though, because Mayall his health started declining at that point in time, and he didn't get better for a while. So in 2009, this Working Title Productions and Universal Pictures began working on a remake with Russell Brand to star as Drop Dead Fred, which that would have been terrible. However, due to the box office failure of his reboot of Arthur, the project was scrapped. So, and Russell Brand's turned out to be a total weirdo whack job. So, and like messaging young girls and stuff. So I'm glad it didn't happen. Alec Baldwin, Jeff Goldblum, Jeffrey Jones, and Rick Moranis were all considered for the role of Charles, her husband. So that was interesting. And more big names.
Wait, Rick Moranis?
And Rick Moranis. Yeah, I don't see him as the suave guy cheating on his wife. Like, what? That's weird. And for the role of Mickey, the cute boyfriend who comes in later in the end, not boyfriend, but the guy she might be dating afterwards, that was offered to future big stars and some already at the time big stars: Josh Brolin, Michael J. Fox, Anthony Michael Hall, Matthew Modine, Keanu Reeves, and Charlie Sheen were all in consideration for that role of Mickey. But they went that kind of lesser known guy who I've seen in other things. But so, yeah, that's some interesting stuff about that film. All these stars that could have been attached to that project. So now we have a little game for Steve.
I still can't get over Rick Moranis.
Rick Moranis.
That's hard for me to justify in
hey,
my
babe,
head.
I'm calling Annabella. How you doing? That'd be so weird.
Oh, my imaginary friend says I'm the imaginary friend, which means I'm imaginary then. If he's right and I'm really not sure, then he's wrong, so I might be made up like the words to this song.
All right, so a little game for Steve here. It's called Famous Film Stars, Fictional Friends. All the F's.
Shiz.
So, Steve, I know you're probably tired like always, but you're going to have to use your brain a little bit for this one.
Ah, damn it.
So I have 10.
6:30, so we're ready to rock.
I have 10 stars that I picked out, like movie stars, that I think would already work as our own imaginary friends because they're so quirky and weird themselves.
Okay.
So I want you to come up with an imaginary friend for each of these stars and like kind of what their role is for that star.
Okay, my God.
So kind of like Drop Dead Fred's role was to keep her happy when she was being depressed from her mom and that kind of thing. So what is their role for this star? And maybe give them a name or something if you can. Whatever details you could fill in, it's fine. All right, so our first quirky star who could already be an imaginary friend himself is Christopher Walken.
Christopher Walken? I got a feeling that it'd be something super mundane. Like, I'm Christopher Walken, and this is my imaginary friend, Harold the alligator. Like, it'd be weird, like some weird nonsensical thing, and it's just he's an alligator with an old timey like hat on, and he's reading a paper all the time.
He's really serious. Yeah,
he is there to level out the insanity of Christopher Walken.
That's kind of the theme of these.
Yeah. He's like, hey, we should go to the park and make fun of the pigeons. He's like, I don't know, Chris.
Doesn't seem like a good idea.
He's the only person that calls him Chris.
Yeah, that's true.
It's Harold the alligator.
Sometimes Topher when he's feeling saucy.
Yeah.
Next one, Tilda Swinton.
Swinton. Well, she is the sharpest human being that has ever been created.
Sharpest cheekbones.
Just the sharpest cheekbones. So we got to go the polar opposite. We'll call it just like Petunia. The British Petunia, who's like a cloud.
A cloud. Oh, I like it.
Just a cloud that follows her around and just cushions her from cutting things around her. Oh, that corner. Oh, that's glass. That's glass. Oh, you were close on that one.
Glass. Oh, yes. I'll be careful next time.
No, not too fast. Nope. We lost a mirror last week.
Third one, Al Pacino.
Just to keep her. Al Pacino. It's Gary, the pile of cocaine, and it's just the pile of cocaine from Scarface.
Follows him around.
And anytime Al Pacino doubts himself, even for a moment, Gary just appears and goes, "You know who you fucking are? You're fucking Al Pacino." And he goes, "Fuck right, I am Al Pacino." That's it. That's all it is. They're just to hype him in those moments of doubt. Al Pacino doesn't do the cocaine.
Oh,
he
he
is
doesn't do
just
the
there
cocaine.
in the form of the thing that signifies Pacino's initial fame.
It's a talking pile of
Scarface.
cocaine.
So he's just right. He's there to remind him he's fucking Tony Montana.
With that. Our fourth one, Aubrey Plaza.
Aubrey Plaza.
I want her to be my imaginary friend.
I feel like she is the imaginary friend to a far more serious person. I think that's the twist here, that she is the imaginary friend, but it's like to Garrison Keillor. It's like
Garrison Keillor.
he's just telling stories about pies and new pairs of shoes.
Lake Wobegon. Yeah.
She's like, yeah, real interesting, Garrison.
I thought it was.
That's what the people love to hear. No, I'm saying it is.
Yeah, I think you're sarcastic. Okay.
No.
Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum. Okay. So Jeff Goldblum, one of the things I love about him as an actor is it always sounds like he's surprising himself with the words coming out of his mouth.
Yes.
It always says like the way to get there is sometime to go back. And it sounds like, so I'm imagining this imaginary friend who's like Victor Verbose, who's like this little tiny guy, and he's feeding him all his lines.
So I went to the store
and then you bought some eggs.
I bought some eggs.
But you found that one of them was brown.
One was brown. One was brown.
Victor Verbose is
I love it.
feeding him the words that he's producing.
That works perfectly. That might be the best one so far. All right, Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp this is just a wolf.
Wolf, hey, how you doing?
He calls him Dark Shadow. His shadow wasn't dark enough.
He's overly serious.
Yes.
He needs a new imaginary friend. One that makes him take himself less seriously.
Right.
That's been the problem this whole time. All right, this was fun. Crispin Glover.
Crispin Glover.
Back to the Future fame. Who's absolutely nuts as a person.
Yes, he is. His is also a pile of cocaine.
Is it the same guy or a different pile of cocaine?
Different pile of cocaine. This is Reluctant Roy. And every time Crispin does do something crazy that takes his career further, he just goes, are you sure you want to do that, bud?
No, I'm not sure.
No, don't do the coke. No, don't.
Should I do
Put
the
it down.
cocaine?
No.
I don't
No,
know.
just don't do it, Crispin.
Okay, I'll do it.
Are you sure? No. Oh, God damn it.
All right. Steve Buscemi.
Steve Buscemi. Well, Steve Buscemi, it's got to be, we'll call him like fantastic Fred the Frog, who has the same bug eyes as Steve Buscemi. And that's the whole joke, is they wear the same outfit. And the frog is just there to remind him of how buggy his eyes are.
This is how you look.
Just to keep him in check.
Yeah. Keep his ego down.
Yeah.
All right. Helena Bonham Carter.
It's just Tim Burton.
It's just Tim Burton. He is her imaginary friend.
I'll just be here in your closet. I know we're divorced, but I'll still see you all the time.
Can you people see him too? Was he imaginary?
No one will believe you.
Have you seen Tim Burton? I agree.
Yes.
He looks like an imaginary
His
friend.
hair gets crazier every year.
Yeah, that's disturbing. And the final one, of course, Gary Busey.
Gary Busey. All right, so his is also the pile of cocaine.
He gets around on these piles of cocaine.
And this one, we'll just call him Bo Cephas. Because every time he's like, I'm Bo Cephas. I'm gonna sneak into Raul's room and I'm gonna steal all his left shoes. Bo Cephas just goes, and because Bo Cephas used to be a very active imaginary friend, and then Gary Busey fried his brain with various things, and that's all Bo Cephas has left. It's just him screaming.
He's trapped in his
asking
brain.
to be let go.
I love it. Oh my God.
I can't leave because you're unhappy.
He's always going to be unhappy. And that's been...
Bo Cephas. You're right. I should take the right shoe.
That's been Famous Film Stars, Fictitious Friends. Thank you, Steve. That was great.
Good time. The Jeff Goldblum one was maybe my best theory to date.
Oh, yeah. I love it. Feeding him lines.
If you have the means, I highly recommend picking one up.
What do you recommend I do?
I recommend Pleasant.
All right. This week, I'm going to recommend a game that I love to play at parties and small gatherings because it takes 30 seconds to learn and people really enjoy it. It's a game that we played at some point because I learned it around the 5th to 6th grade. We always called it camps, but it turns out that most people call it Kemps.
That's crazy.
Kemps. So if you YouTube Kemps, you'll find it. But it is a game where you play in pairs. You put 4 cards face up, and everyone gets dealt 4 cards. And the point is to get 4 of a kind. When you get 4 of a kind, you have to signal your partner because your partner has to say the word Kemps for you to win.
Mm-hmm. I remember that. Played it a lot.
Yep. Or you can watch other people and try to call it on people that aren't on your team. And if they have it, you also get a point for sticking them.
I totally forgot about this game until now.
It's an amazing game.
I loved it.
And I can't endorse it enough. We've been playing with my cousin like the last couple of times they're here because you can play with any even number of people.
Oh, yeah, you can, I guess.
And it's incredibly fast to learn. Like, that's the issue with a lot of games. People are like, we should play a game, blah, blah, blah. And everyone's having like a fun drinking night. And they like get out a box. And I'm like, it's already not a good start.
Not going to happen.
Right. Or it is going to happen. And it's going to really bum things out. Kemps is not that game. You need a deck of cards. It takes 30 seconds to learn. And it's really good for high bullshit factor. Everyone's real suspicious of each other. The play is quick. So you don't have to really care for too long about anything. Big laughs, and there's plenty of room to talk and chat and shit. It doesn't shut down the social.
It's a good
aspect,
hangout game.
like a lot of games do.
And that's the idea is you talk before the round starts to establish a signal privately with your partner.
Yeah.
And maybe you free people out by doing things that are unnatural, like scratching your head or something, and try to make people say Kemps when you don't have it.
And it's one of those games that I play with my cousins, and we've played with 6 people a lot. So three teams. And it gets to the point where like, we don't keep score. We don't really care who won the last one. There's no finish line. It's just a game to play
right
while you're having a night.
I like it. I'm going to bring that back. Oh my gosh.
So check it out. I always knew it as Camps, but apparently most people know it as Kemps.
That's weird.
Kemps.
Where did you learn it? Do you remember where you learned it initially? Before internet?
No, I don't legitimately. Yeah, exactly. Before internet. I learned it at a sleepover.
Yeah.
But I think it was like 5th to 7th grade, probably. So
I think you brought with you from before you met me or something.
Maybe, man.
That's great.
Too long ago. Who cares?
Good recommendation. All right. Now it's time for trailer reviews. This time around, we have a sequel, maybe, or reboot. Not certain. But the movie Twisters from the Twister franchise of one movie. Unless there was direct-to-video sequels I don't know about. But yeah, so the trailer just came out. What do you think, Steve?
So it looks like it's kind of taking the like Ghostbusters arc in that like it's very much or maybe even Star Wars Force Awakens. We're seeing a lot of story echoes, a lot of familiar archetypes, a lot of like she's established, he needs her, blah blah blah, kind of, you know, those same things from Twister. And not only that, we get to see like the same tech from Twister. Is it really the exact same story?
The balls
My
that go
hope
up
is
in
that most of what's in this, my hope is that most of what's in this trailer is in the first 30 minutes of the film. And whatever about the situation fails, and then the rest is going to be a departure, because with what they showed us, it looks like they're literally trying to go beat for beat.
Yeah.
From the original.
It was a long trailer. Like it showed a lot.
It was. That one guy, though, definitely dies early.
Which one? The guy who hires her?
Yeah.
Yeah, the one from
black
Hamilton.
curly hair. Yeah, from him. He definitely dies early. He's only in like very specific parts of the trailer, and then the rest of the time it's white guy and her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, he's gone. I think he dies in whatever that movie theater scene they showed was.
Something that stood out to me was the guy who's starring in this. He just recently, I first saw him is in a movie with
Top Gun?
Sydney Sweeney. He was in Top Gun as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's kind of like the generic, good looking, blondish colored white guy. You know, really in good shape and everything.
And we need a new one every 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. And, but just the age gap difference looks so big between him and the not Helen Hunt. Is that her name? Helen Hunt from the original? Yeah, Helen Hunt.
Yeah, Helen Hunt.
And for that, like, I felt like Helen Hunt felt the same age as Bill Paxton in the original movie. This one, it feels like she's like a Gen Z, like young kid. And then he's like our age, you know, like it just seemed like really, and like, I hope it's like, maybe they'll surprise us and they won't be a romantic interest, because that'll be really awkward for me. He looks like a full grown man. She looks like a child, or maybe I'm just getting old and that's just the way Helen Hunt, she was also young. But
That's not Helen Hunt though.
Huh?
Are you talking about the age gap as in comparison to movies?
No, I'm saying like when the original Twister, Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton felt like they were around the same age. And in this movie, it feels like he's like our age, and the woman who's playing like the Helen Hunt version of the character is like super young.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the big difference is that Twister, like Helen Hunt wasn't being shipped as like the sexual desire in that movie.
Well, her and Bill Paxton were like a romantic interest, or like a.
They were, but they weren't shipping women's images with the same ferocity as they are now back then.
True. And I will give this trailer credit. She's not sexualized in this trailer at all, really. She's shown as like, she's dressed as pretty conservatively. She's a scientist, but she's also like a young Gen Zer kind of person.
You know, as the movie goes on, layers are going to come off and that shirt's going to get ripped.
The tornado just rips her shirt off.
The tornado is, but you know that's going to happen. Like that is what's going to occur.
Well, and also, especially for him, he's like jacked, so they'll probably his shirt will come off at some point, of course.
Oh yeah, that guy's friggin' yoked.
Yeah.
At some point, he will be hanging shirtless from something, resisting the pull.
So you can see the muscle strands
of the tornado threatening to pull away.
Like Captain America.
Hold on. That scene will happen.
Oh yeah, of course.
So I don't know. This movie looks really generic. Like nothing about this is grabby to me, not even from a nostalgia point of view.
It would have worked in the 90s, like with the rest of the disaster flicks that were huge, but maybe it'll be good. You know, maybe they'll do it well.
Or maybe we're wrong.
Doesn't look terrible, but nothing particularly stood out.
Okay, so I'm going to give this one Gary Busey, and he just is in the garage spinning, just spinning, and he does it until he gets dizzy, and he falls down, and then he gets up and he does it again, and he does this all day, and he throws up. And he's hurting himself and he's got bumps and bruises, but he just keeps going. And then inside, finally enjoying a couple hours of pieces roll in his chair. He goes, I told him to be a tornado and he just did it. And he goes back to reading his paper.
I'm going to do this every night.
And Harold the alligator's next to him like, me too, bud.
And Bocephus is in there going, stop spinning, please. I'm going to give this one, Raul Julia says, Gary, we're going for a trip. Why don't you get in the back of the truck? So he's like, I love trips. When he gets in the back of the truck, and they start driving out in the middle of the Oklahoma plains. And you see Raul Julia driving straight for a tornado. Where are we going, Raul? Oh, nowhere. Just hold on. And he takes him right in the middle of a tornado. So that Gary's just pulled up in the tornado and dies a terrible death.
Just stay there.
Okay. I'll spin him.
Bocephus.
Thank God I'm finally free.
Yep.
Oh, my God. All right. That brings us to the end of the episode, I believe.
Yeah. Join us next time when, in honor of Furiosa, the prequel to the sequel, Mad Max Fury Road, we're going to talk about another prequel to a sequel that no one's talking about. In honor of the new Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Conquest of the Planet of the Apes.
That's
from
right.
The original series. The fourth installment, which is technically a sequel to a prequel.
Yes. So it's similar in so many ways and so time appropriate.
That's right. Join us for that and so much more next time. Come on back and be our nerdy audience. We will keep on coming back and being your nerdy co-hosts. Thanks again, Internet.
Stay nerdy, my friends.
Thanks for listening to A Play on Nerds. Feel free to email feedback at aplayonnerds.com with all your questions or comments.
Shoot us a message on Facebook or Twitter and earn yourself a sweet shout out on the show.
Review us on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts so even more nerds can find us. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, we aren't picky.
Check out our entire back catalog and other offerings at aplayonnerds.com.
And how?